It's not muted. I didn't plug it into the right hole. Hi guys. I have to move my mic back and forth when I have private sessions with students and oh my God. All right. Well, so nothing was received, but I do appreciate that. I finally saw the little chat here. Hi guys, welcome in. I am a clumsy professor, but I do have my moments. All right, so we're going over how networks work, how IP addresses work. And now that you can hear me, I can basically regurgitate the details that I'm going through on the visual basis. All right. So thanks for that. Appreciate you guys letting me know. Uh, yeah, I'm not the best streamer in the world. And it's not even just that. I just have one USB I had to replace to another location. I teach online, but I used to teach at University of Central Florida and Valencia College in Orlando, Florida. Mathematics specifically, but up to computer science based courses. Um, so one of the projects we had to do was create our own language. Plugging into the right one is necessary in life. Yes, it is. Do you also teach basics probing for Python? Yes, I do. If you're here and you're new, welcome. I really appreciate you joining in. Check out some of the playlists I have. I have a lot of very, I'm starting off because I can go into more detailed spaces, right? I can go into very detailed content, but I want to kind of bring everyone along on a slow journey, getting us all synchronized to the same factor. So if you go to something like the beginner space, let's check the videos here. I have a couple of things, keylogging JavaScript, refactoring logic, beginning Python, set up the environment itself. If you want to go with some math too, guys, algebra's in here. Remember, math is not necessary for programming, but it is a logical sense of understanding, and it helps you become more efficient. PC building, JavaScript here, couple of use cases for 10 languages. There is also, where is that? There was another one. There was this three-dimensional programming I showed where I compared JavaScript, Python, and C++. Maybe it's in academia. Let me see. And there's a concept I like to push, right? If you know a specific bit of language, like let's say you have one language you really like or you want to learn, you learn 15% of it, then that 15% transfers to every other language. You just have to adjust the way you think about this new language or syntax. Yes, oh yes, if you're going to go into AI machine learning, you are definitely working on efficiency of code, and you have to make sure that your loops aren't n to the big O 50,000. You don't want to go more than three. Basically, you don't want to do code that's ineffective because you only slow yourself down. So the 3D, there, no, that's boss battle, math and grammar. Let me see. 3D. No, that's Roblox. Yeah, I have Roblox stuff too because I used to teach kids Roblox starting points. Three dimension? No, how about Python? Beginning setup, importing files in the array for analyzing market data, learning Python for beginners, office hours, Iron Python box commando, Llama server. There's a lot of different things. I do also do AI based, ChatGPT 5. Look, if we're gonna talk AI, if we're talking the capabilities of that ChatGPT, it's on point. It's getting there. It's getting to a really good point. If we're talking about the human altruistic changes that we're going to have to go through as a society when we're dealing with these chat GPT modules that are technically taking over everything, including the way we think, including the critical thinking aspects of society, I think we're getting cooked very quickly. We are the lobster in the hot water and it's about to turn boiling and we're not even noticing it because it feels like a nice jacuzzi right now. We've got Chat GPT. We can do some cool stuff. I mean, I've got not Chat GPT, but I can go over here, set up my Olamo, run Mistral AI, my local AI on my computer, and I can ask it some stuff and we can have some details. Hey, like and subscribe, buds. I'll be here. Make sure you put the notifications on and check me out in the future. Have conversations with me. I absolutely love having some individuals to communicate and discuss these kind of things. So here's my little Mistral model, right? So Let's say, give me a bash code for ping sweeping a local network, which is where we're gonna go. And then the AI does some cool stuff in the background and it does some little magic brain AI stuff, basically statistics, algorithms, and then tells me, hey, you can make a bash script like this. So for the case right now with AI, we're being cooked. We're all lobsters in a nice big tub, and it's nice and warm, and we're like, yeah, look at this. I can get the code. I can even learn from this. I can expand my own capabilities. But you know what the problem is? I had many students that didn't really use this as a way of learning or a tool to actually benefit themselves. They use this as a regurgitation factor. They basically just said, hey, ChatGPT can give me the answer. I'm going to plug it in and then call it a day. And the problem is, everyone's got online classes where they don't even check. All you do is go to an AI, plug your stuff in, copy and paste, and all of a sudden you think you're smart. This is what I mean, we're being cooked. We're replacing actual thought with just an AI model thinking for us. What's my domain? A couple of them. If you go to superscholar.xyz, that's my educational domain. I do have some cool brain training games, everything from speed reading, calculation, mathematics. Where should you start? First pick. Well, okay, you're starting, so I'm assuming you don't know how to partition hard drives yet. Potentially not on the most dangerous level. You don't want to install Linux on your main PC because maybe you have your main work on your main PC. So I would say start with a virtual machine, just like this guy, Oracle VirtualBox, right? Set up yourself a virtual machine, set up yourself a Linux installation and learn how it works first. Then install it a couple of times. Configure it differently. Each time you do set up a Linux virtual machine, you have options to adjust the way it works. So this is my Kali machine here. And I have my Windows 10 over here. And when you install it on a repetitive basis and you play around with the partitioning, you learn about how to do it in the real world. I don't think it's cooked. I don't think it's cooked. Conventional programming is still going to be way, way more powerful than AI generated slop. Because you have to consider this isn't an intelligent being. This isn't a creative AI. This is just a regurgitating statistical value set. You ask me a question about, like, let's say I'm the AI, right? You ask me a question about how do I create a ping sweep? And then the AI says, okay, ping, sweep. What's the ping point to? Ping is networking. Ping is bash. Ping is a command. Ping is a form of network communication. It combines or goes through those trees of statistical thought to bring out specific values for us to regurgitate, take in. So the creativeness of a statistical analysis doesn't really work without the human brain. So is it cooked? No, I think conventional coding is going to be even better than what's, at least it's going to filter out all the vibe coders out there and basically, I don't know if you heard about the T app. Heard about the T app? I hope you have heard about the T app. Basically, what I would say is a case scenario for someone using AI to code something without actually applying any safety or security. And they say it's a hack where, oh, someone hacked into the server and took all their stuff. I say it's not a hack because if anyone can connect to it, being a technical intellectual doesn't mean you're a hacker. If you're overcoming security measures because you put them there for someone to not enter, it's like saying you leave your door open and then you're downtown and someone wanders into your house. In a way, legally, that person's not household member, but it doesn't make him a burglar, right? He just saw an open door. Maybe he thought it was a store and he walked in. He's like, oh crap, it's not a store. Let me walk back out. So this hack that they're trying to push on the mainstream media is not actually a hack. This app did not have any IP locking. It did not have any sense of security in the way that it stopped people from connecting outside of the app itself. So you can essentially use the direct link, which they did, and they probably patched up by now, but you can use that direct link to actually access the whole server. And that's not hacking, that's just being somewhat competent with networking, which is kind of what we're doing here. We're understanding how networking works. So that database basically gained access by just walking through the door. That's not hacking. That's not being a burglar. If the door's open, you're not a burglar for walking in. He is a burglar technically for taking the data from that particular website. But then again, this is a case for like online public data and domain. If you don't have any particular security, you're not really saying, hey, don't access this. You're saying, welcome all, access my data. That's public domain stuff. Learning the basics in coding world is just learning the first 15%. So my advice, go into my beginners, maybe do some beginning math for programmers, understanding how variables, how loops, how functions work in a mathematical sense. Maybe do some of the beginning programming. Actually a good one is if you go on Steam, there's a program called Joy of Programming for engineering. Great way to understand the use of loops in a physical, realistic engineering way. Also, guys, make sure to like, subscribe for future content, turn the notifications on, and let me know if you want anything particular that you want to see in future videos by commenting, chatting, or the like. So there's a lot of different particular ways. I have learning Python again, beginner's joy of programming. There's basically puzzle solving with Python. You want to understand and you want to be able to solve puzzles, basically. If you can master a language to a certain point where you're using that language to solve a puzzle, then you know it enough to extend yourself to other languages. This includes loops, mechanics of if and then statements, and so on and so forth. So the case scenario is learn the first 15% of a language, understand what variables are, functions, classes, all that kind of stuff. And there's plenty of content online, but if you like the way I teach, if you haven't seen any of them yet, check them out. Beginning Math for programmers and see if you like the way I do it. If you don't, that's fine. Everyone's different. I've taught many students. Maybe 1 out of 10, 15 don't like the way I teach, and that's totally fine. Uh, so, give yourself a chance. Check out the playlist on my channel and then follow forward because it's the case of practice. It's the case of seeing things. It's the case of understanding how programming can work. The first step is to learn just your basics, 15%. Um, your typical variables, functions, classes, etc., arrays, key value pairs, all that kind of stuff. Then it's how can I take that basic concept and then use it to solve puzzles? Then you kind of get a very good understanding for those ideas. Thanks for joining, guys. Appreciate it. And then after you solve a bunch of puzzles, figuring it out, it's almost like learning how to move, right? First, you start moving your fingers and kind of working around like maybe you're a baby just, existing finally in this world and you're moving your fingers and then finally you start using your fingers to pick objects up and solve puzzles. This is the case for programming too. Learn the first 15%, solve some puzzles with that 15%, then extend yourself to either more complex systems, understanding how to do networking like we are in this session here. We're going to be working, and we have been, just kind of got a little diverted. You need to, okay, a third year CS student, you need to be working on mazes. You need to solve mazes. What is the most effective way to leave a maze? With multiple exit points or one exit point, but many different paths, understanding how you can create a set of code to vision yourself, to see around your particular location and make certain weighted choices, right? Your concept here is to understand the most effective way to act upon given data. That's what a CS student needs to know. So for you, solve mazes. There's online CS practice problems and stuff like that on how basically um, they give you a maze and then they say solve it, find a way out, or find the most effective way out, or figure out how to get from point A to point B. That's the first thing. That's not all of it though. Then it's sorting, figuring out all the sorting types, bubble sort, God, I forgot them all at this point by name, but there's so many ways you can sort data and you can connect data piece by piece. This is your kind of work towards AI and machine learning. This is really how vectors work inside of an AI model. They are a type of sorted set of statistical weight that says, hey, if you're looking for this word, there's a certain connection to other words based on a numerical weight. And what the AI model does is if you say ping, if you ask it something about a ping, like we did over here in our little local AI, then the AI model is going to take a look at a particular next related word, and it's going to say, okay, networking. And then it's going to say, okay, what about networking? Then it connects itself to networking. It says ping on networking, and then it goes into, all right, what's the language in this set, right? You have Python, okay, you have Bash, which is a local scripting on the terminal. And then you have SSH, then you have TCP, UDP, and then it connects everything. But the question itself is maybe how to make a ping sweep, like we just did, right? The little, where's my, give me a bash code for ping sweep on a local network. And it takes that set of detail. Okay, local network ping sweep. So I don't need TCP, I don't need UDP. And then it builds a path for that AI to answer the question with statistical accuracy. Which again, on the case of being cooked as a coding conventional developer, it'll give you guidance. Creativity is not a factor here. AI doesn't have creative thought. It only has regurgitative statistical. It's like it's like a super intelligent autocomplete. You know those little typing you're trying to type on your phone and it's like, did you mean this word or that word or this word? Now that's just a simple autocomplete. But an AI is more advanced and it'll autocomplete words ahead and create full sentences that'll basically guide a person's thoughts in the direction that the question was asked. So that's a big piece here. So as a computer science student, mazes and organizing algorithms, those are the directions you want to go. And I guess a side project would be to understand systems on a low level. So there are projects you can find online to basically, and guides to create your own compiler. It's not going to be super advanced. You're probably just going to do like a hello world assembler, but in the end, it'll teach you how programming works on the lower levels, especially third year. First year, second year computer science students will basically learn mathematical, um, basically expanding on their mathematical logic and critical thinking. Third and fourth year are going to go more into the assembly language, um, organizing algorithms based on those mathematical algorithms that you've learned in the first and second year, and then solving specific puzzles in the most effective way possible. So there's your details there for the computer science guy. Ishwa, thanks for the comments. The chat, scary moments, definitely checking, bro. Thanks, no problem, buddy. Scary moments, suggesting how you understand and learn the basics or start in the coding world. What kind of went through that, right? What are 5 projects should every CS student should make? Uh, I mean, outside of creating again, a maze solver, it's not like you're creating one AI bot or one maze solver for one maze. Your maze solver should be able to adapt to different mazes. So there's your first project. Create a maze solving algorithm. Second one, play around with different sorts. Create a, um, well, let's see. When you go into Python, there is a specific function called sort. This is basically what we use in Python to sort different things in different ways. This, recreate it. There's your project two. Recreate the sort algorithm. But inside you have different functionality. So you go into details. You can sort by keys, you can sort by years, you can sort by all kinds of values within, right? Alphabetical sorts, numerical sorts, etc. Those are project two. Project three, create an assembler. Create your own language, basically, your own programming language, where you take a set of keys, a set of values, a set of text that you write as a programmer, and then you convert it into assembly, which is a lot more difficult, but definitely worthwhile. For, I guess this would be more computer engineering, but there is a project that I did which was to create a vending machine algorithm where you have a set of vending machine items, Coke, Pepsi, etc. And based on the buttons being pressed, a specific value activates a certain drink to pop out. That's another one on the realistic applicable space. And fifth, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure at this point. There's a lot of pieces you want. But I think the first three are going to be really the ones you want to do. Last question, where should I start? Linux, got that one. Sorry, I have to leave. Okie dokie. Any thoughts on ChatGPT? I've had that thought. It's great, but it's going to replace critical thinking, which is not so great for us. We need to keep, we have more responsibility as people now to push ourselves to learn and critically train ourselves. If you go to my Super Scholar space, join my Patreon for support, or just basically joining me on my reign to get people's brains shaken. If you can go to my collections, where's my collections at? I don't need this. You can always join for actual education if you'd like, but if you go join for free, that's cool. Go into collections. Then I have this little thing here about brain training, the brain lifting mentality, right? This is what people need to focus on. This is what people really need to push themselves to go forward with. All right. A lot of students get fatigued when they think. I literally have students that just do math for 15 minutes and then they get tired and then they get cranky. That they're like 10, 12, 13, sometimes 18 years old, they're different ages. But they get cranky. There is a level of like when you're going to the gym to work out your arms and your legs, you're gonna get tired. But do you stop when you get tired? No, you don't. You want to keep going because that extra level, that extra set that you're doing after you're tired is the one that's going to keep pushing you stronger. So the same thing with thinking. It's just a different brain muscle, right? We're thinking of a way that our brain wants to receive information. In many cases, you want to go to a certain level of near fatigue, but you don't want to push yourself to a point where you're completely exhausted. Drinking water is another case for that. So the brain lifting mentality is something that we're going to need to focus on as a species to kind of I used to teach at University of Central Florida, but this was in a math lab, so mathematics specifically. I don't teach in those locations anymore because I've moved. I'm in a different location now physically, and I do all of my online at home. I teach from a remote based location. But generally speaking, I don't know, man. I worked at those locations and it was nice. It was great, but it's just working for another corporation when you really think about it. Universities have become, in fact, I would recommend people go into colleges primarily before you go into university. When you go to a college, you're still kind of going from a high school to a college mentality where your classes are small. You still have small amounts of groups. You don't have like 500 students in one room. And your professor doesn't just read a PowerPoint, then leave, and then leave you to your, well, student assistants. College, community college or college in general, it's still a lot more intricate with the student. You have a student to teacher communication. You can ask questions without feeling like you're taking up the time of 500 other students. In many cases, that mentality of ask a question because somebody else might still have that question and maybe too shy to ask it, that actually applies very well in college because you ask the question, you can learn from those questions you ask. In university, they're just trying to pump out as many people as possible. Universities are factories for diplomas. They would rather see you fail because then you'd have to pay more money to get the class again, right? It's a big business. So why don't I teach at a uni anymore? Well, because I don't agree with their mentality. I don't agree with the way that they invested their money, University of Central Florida specifically, into a lazy river instead of upgrading their math department. I don't agree that football teams have anything to do with the university's prestige when we're trying to help people grow mentally and go into the workforce and be prepared for the life. Football doesn't do that. Football is entertainment. And in the United States, sports has kind of overcome the, well, it's just kind of fucked shit up, if I can be late. Um, and the next case is that professors aren't hired to teach at a university, they're hired to do research. Their secondary job requirement is to actually teach, which is kind of sad. because you think of a place that you're learning from. You're trying to go to a place that you want to increase your own abilities. But you notice that your professor is just there because it's a part of his to-do list. And then he goes back to his little lab and does a little research paper that gets published in a journal. And then that journal talks about university. And then all of a sudden, they're just doing it for the clout. Um, all those things conflict. I don't like it. I'm a very classical scholar. I believe in the word of education. I believe in people expanding their abilities, whether individually, internally, or with the help of an external guide. I don't believe in sports in educational environments. They should be a thing, that's fine, but why are they connected to universities? I don't believe in all this. Like, if you really look at the campus at the University of Central Florida, it's basically a resort. It's basically like a Disney World for students entering the world of being alcoholics, partying all the time. Oh, you're a college student, this and that. Taking things seriously is very, 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 it's just, it's not the same. It's not the same. And I think it's ever since education became privatized. If you think like maybe 20, 30, 40 years ago when education was one of those things you have to work for, you have to grade in for, and you have to make sure you're qualified to go to the next step instead of just having a wallet to enter, paying money to enter education. Education cost less in the past too, because people were qualified for that further education. You had to work hard in high school, you had to work hard in middle school in order to access college and university. Now anyone can access college and university just by paying money. And when you pay money, especially if it's not your money as a student, as a college student, it's your mom's or dad's money, you don't take it as seriously. You didn't put that work in high school. You didn't put that work in middle school. You just have kind of like a little quick way to get to university with money. And that's just basically just a way for students to not take things as seriously as they should. So, ever since education became a corporatized system where people are paying money to access rather than putting effort to access, that's when it broke apart. And then you have fraternities, and then you have all these stupid little groups of people that are trying to be all unique and, oh, I'm in what the Ivy League schools even further? Oh God. All of those extra snobby places. Anyway, guys, if you like my takes, like and subscribe, and I'll keep reminding I'm pretty bad on that, but like, subscribe, follow up for more in the future. But this is kind of the thing about AI is we're gonna need to really push ourselves to self-discipline ourselves. That's really the key is we need to start having more self-discipline to educating and to practicing and to actually letting and brain lifting. Brain lifting. It's like going to the gym and working, but you're just sitting down doing puzzles. You're doing math. You're maybe drawing and being creative because the set of the brain, again, this is why the picture is here. It's not just logical ABCs and algorithms. It's also creativity. We're losing creativity. We've been losing creativity ever since fucking TikTok. We stopped reading books and imagining what the fuck those books were doing. I am a classical scholar. I go back to the basics, guys. You read a book, you have to use imagination to understand what's happening. In order to read effectively, you need to picture the pieces that are happening in the book. Then you can recall them through that imagery. This is just how the brain works. But when you're watching TV or watch, it's even worse now. It started with TV. TV made everything visual in our face, so we don't have to think about what we're looking for or at. We just absorb and absorb and absorb. That's all TV is. So TV, I didn't like that in the beginning. But now TikTok, every 15 seconds, you look at something completely different, forgetting what you saw 15, 20, 30 seconds ago. That's cooking our next generations up like way quick. Like it's the Zoomers and all the new kids that are growing up with TikTok and all those things, they're being flash fried. They're basically getting really, really they're about to get burnt too. So practicing creativity is no different than practicing logic. Read books, imagine, draw, create. There's all those layers that you need to work with. And I think the most effective human being, the most intelligent human being, is not one that does math. It's one that uses both sides of his brain equally. The one that is both creative and training and practicing creativity, but also is training and practicing logic. Da Vinci is a perfect example. Da Vinci was an artist, but he was also a mathematician. He had ideas that were mathematical, but they were also creative. Those are the factors that take into place. If we can base ourselves more like Da Vinci, we might have, a very great growth in a scholarly process. But ah, we have to be self-disciplined, guys. We can't get stuck in these loops. We can't get stuck in the wall of never-ending scrolling. We can't get stuck in TikTok 15-second videos or shorts. I hate shorts, but I got to do them too sometimes to make some sort of marketing expansion into helping people learn. So it is what it is. What can you do? We just have to adapt to the current times. Um, so yeah, join me on Patreon. Look up all the collections I have. I have a lot of stuff too. It's not just about brain training. If you want to learn about technical stuff, I have a section here for uh, what are my collections? Here. IT journal. This is where I kind of put all my IT stuff. You want a local AI? Yep. You can install DeepSeek AI or other AI modules on your computer. You just need a decent graphics card. Open source software. I don't know why it's locked. Probably should unlock that. Yeah, Da Vinci for sure. Um, I don't know him personally as a character, but as far as the endowed skill sets that he put upon himself, I would say no one without a great mindset. What's that? Hold on, my screen's tearing. The amount of work he put into himself shows that he is a great human being. Um, a little bit of a programming guide, right? So for those that are looking for, why is my screen tearing? I guess because the color variation on the screen. This is kind of, yeah, a layout for programmers that are new, right? If you want to learn programming, here's how you kind of work with it, right? And kind of like cat. Hold on. Hey, baby boy, can you let go of me? I got my cat chilling in the back, so here he is. Just kind of wanted to show him on stream. What's up, guys? Wow, look at that. He's becoming a part of the background. This is Shadow. Say hello, Shadow. How you doing? Are you hungry? You got your food? Are you just bored? Go look at the birds outside. So, if you want to know programming, this is kind of the basic sense you want to go into. You want to understand file structures, absolutely, because when you're programming, you're not just using one file as code, you are expanding into different directories, you're accessing different libraries, and you want to know how to organize those yourself. You want to basically understand hidden files are hidden for a reason. They're nice to look at. Extension renaming, sometimes your Windows machine might not give you extensions, so you have to make sure you can know how to go into view, show extensions, etc., etc. Those are kind of like the basics of computer usage, right? Changing your computer from being, yeah, it was just chilling up here on the side. Um, you're changing the kind of defaulted user-friendly interface of Mac too. If you're on a Mac, it's a lot more difficult to program, so good luck on that. There's a lot of readjustments you have to do to your interface. But in the general sense, you're looking at changing your computer from a nice and user-friendly limited interface to seeing what your files are named as far as extensions go, to being able to manage hidden files, to managing project folders, organize yourself in that factor. Administration skills. For Python, you need to understand how environmental variables work when you're going in Windows specifically. In Linux, it's a bit different, but being able to change the way that your variables are pointing. Like if you install Python on a system, your command prompt needs to see that. It needs to know where your Python installation is. If you have Python 3.11, 3.12, 27 different versions, then you have to understand how to organize the different versions. I'll give it a get-go. If you're doing AI-based stuff, the most compatible Python right now is 3.11. I wouldn't go to 3.12 or anything further or anything backwards. 3.11 is kind of like the standard, and going into um what is it? AudioCraft is one of those packages in Python where you can create music. Invoke AI is another package you can use to create images. Olama is the actual server that you can install locally to grab yourself a AI that you can ask questions to, like a chatbot, but also gives you information like actual, code and stuff. So there's different ways, but Python 3.11 is going to be the base Python you want to use for anything AI related. Then you begin. There is the 15% right here. Technicals come before programming, so you have to know a little bit about the operating system you're working on. Admin skills, installation, customizations, emulated workspaces, large projects, compilers, assemblers, developing different project spaces. Basically, playing around in the directories. That's it. That's all these are. Playing around the directories, knowing how to work with that, how to import external code. Basically, downloading a package, putting it in a specific directory, and then pointing your Python file to go access it. That's it. Beginning programming generally. There it is. This is where you go to if, else, while, var, int, double, float, bool. I didn't put arrays in here, but that's a part of it. Understanding functions, how they work. Understanding classes and objects, how they relate. Class is a blueprint for an object that has not been created yet. You use the keyword new to create that object, and then that basically creates a variable that carries the blueprint information from class. So if there's a variable called player name in class, that object now has player name. And it could be player name 1 for the first player, or player 2, or player 3. Then you create different objects for different players, and then you can pit them against each other when each object has maybe hit points and attack damage. That's one of the things I did before, but I think I'll elaborate more in the future with an example of creating like a turn-based text fighting scene to really understand how classes objects work. Okay. That's for a future session. So make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for when I do go live. I do go live as much as I can, but sometimes I'm either burnt out from programming on my own or burnt out from students throughout the day doing math and programming, and I take time off on the farm just to kind of refresh from time to time. So there's no real set schedule when I'm on, but I try to be consistent at least a couple of times a week. So turn on notifications just so you know when I'm on. Networking is then after, right? Or there you go. Computer science algorithms are good. This is not necessary. If you're just going to make a website, like a visualized portfolio so you can basically make a nice looking website, you don't really need algorithms. But if you need to manage a database, you have logins and users, you definitely want to be pretty proficient in how algorithms work in a programming language. So that would basically increase users, interactions, calculations, organizing lists, and speed of data flow. Basically the effect there. What is that? Why am I tearing? This video card, I need to replace this video card. I literally just minimized that and it stopped tearing. Anyway, then you can expand to whatever you want. At that point, you're entering the 85%. At that point, you're like, I want to do networking. Then you focus on networking. I want to do game development. Then you focus on game development. I want to do user interface development. You focus on the thing you want, right? The 85%, the rest of programming, because again, this is just the 15%. Once you know the 15, you can learn Python, and then you can learn JavaScript, and then you can learn C and C++ and Rust and whatever. But you learn the basics of how to use it, like the grammar of that language. Then you find a dictionary of the subject you want to learn, and you dive deep in it. You don't want to mix too many of these. If you're going to do game and UI, I guess so. Maybe, because they can relate. You can create a user interface on top of a gaming system. Networking for gaming will make you a multiplayer game, right? So you'll be able to connect 2 or 3 computers in a local server to play a game together with multiple users. So some aspects of networking and gaming and UI overlap, but you're not gonna like learn 100% of networking, 100% of the game development, and 100% of UI development. It's just gonna be impossible. You're gonna be 80 years old on a deathbed still reading books. Like you need specific tools, and your focus is to find those tools relating to the details you want to go over. And this one here is fun. Expand into the dark web, live a simple life, work from home in peace. That's your choice from there out, right? So the kind of, and it's not just here, it's not just D7. Um, I should actually upload a thing. Hold on. I have a nice little visual here that I want to upload for that specific expansion. It's one that I go to consistently. It's a little image that I created on one of my previous streams, and it kind of gives you the full rundown. But these three that I've highlighted here are not the only ones you can do, right? These are the most common ones a lot of students ask me about lately. Basically being able to go into these subjects and expanding from there. But you have stuff like data organization, data analytics, all kinds of details in between that essentially works within that space. So let me do a print screen. Oh, that's not the one. Wrong computer. Print screen here. I'm going to upload the document that I have here for, gosh, I keep using the wrong computer. I have multiple computers over here, so it's going to be like a little bit of error. But feel free to ask any questions while I'm setting this up. I'll send a link also and show you what I'm basically gonna set out. I just need to upload it to my server for everyone to see and access at any time you want. You have data analysis, maybe you want to do trading and algorithms on a market. Maybe you want to analyze fundamentals of an economy. Then you have access to online things like Yahoo. And here's kind of the case, right? Right back here, this bottom right corner. This is all done in JavaScript. I actually did a session earlier where I went to the, where'd I go? Home. And then I went to PKI, VS Code. Where'd I go? Local. Share. And then Desklet, Cinnamon, Desklet. There we go. And see, understanding where your files are, that's like the key, very basic structure. And then this is actually the Yahoo Finance set. So I can right click here, open with being able to traverse your complex web of folders. And not just the folders where you store your pictures and your movies and your, whatever games, but like the system files, understanding where those suckers are, because sometimes they're not really that obvious to find. This is all JavaScript. Believe it or not, this Yahoo Finance widget on this desktop right here is all done in JavaScript. And this is in a Linux environment, right? So this is Cinnamon, the Cinnamon desktop environment. And being able to create tools like this for you to use at any point. I didn't create this tool, obviously. It says it at the top. I think someone else made it. Yeah, work of Fatuin's stocks Desklet based on the work of Fatuin? Fatuin? I'm not sure. What boot camp? Be in more detail. What kind of boot camp? What's the goal of it? Are you learning online? Are you learning basic programming? What's the kind of uh overall feel for this boot camp? Boot camps are great. They can teach you good skills. The problem with boot camps is it really depends on which one you pick. Some of them will be very useful, some of them will be kind of like meh. Uh, Not on the best case scenario. So it really depends. All right, let me export that file I was working on here. Ground control, uh, 15%. I'll call this 15%. And then I'll go to my server using FileZilla. Doo-doo-doo, log in. The biggest thing in boot camps, generally speaking, is getting a head start. Because if you know what you're working with, you can get a head start and not fall behind. Because they're normally very, very short. They're like what, 4 weeks to 2 months or something, and you learn a lot of stuff at once. So knowing what the boot camp's about, that's why I ask, like, what kind of boot camp are you going for? Okay, that will run for 6 months. That sounds just like a semester of class, to be honest. Nothing crazy on that one. Normal boot camps that I've seen are like 2 months. They're very like speed runs for programming. I'd say take as much notes as you can. Ah, and generally speaking, this should be just a general programmer's self-development process. Take as much notes, code, organize it, never lose it. Never lose it. Ah, Node.js, cool. Oh, so it's going to learn multiple React, SQL, Spring, Node.js. So you're going to the web dev stuff. Got it. Java, I guess Java for embedded. So if you're going into React, SQL, Spring Node, or Spring, I'm not sure what that is, Node, no, SQL, and C Sharp. So if you're doing SQL, React, and Node, you might be creating server-based apps. C Sharp and Java might help you with local servers as well. Because you want to use C Sharp for, it looks like a kind of general learn as much as you can, the different types. I'm surprised Python's not in there. That's funny. Hmm. You'd figure Python would be one of the top ones in the world by now with the AI craze and the data analysis stuff. So React is basically being able to communicate online with, wait, am I thinking of the wrong one? No, that was something else. That was something else. Oh, hold on. React.js. What was React.js? Hey, I couldn't log in. Oh, my server settings changed. Oh, that's pretty lame. I have to readjust server settings. Never mind. So what the heck was React.js? Wasn't that just basically Node and TypeScript and I remember that little dotty icon. Why my network acting funky? Yeah. Yep, there's a dot with the, yep, free open source front and well, okay, interface creation basically, interfaces. Oh yeah, they had the navigational breadcrumb type. It's great for mobile, I suppose it was. Okay, so considering what you're working with then, Python too. Okay, fair enough. So it looks like what you're going through, it seems like an overall landscape. There's not a lot you're going to be able to do at the end of the 6 months. Potentially, you'll be able to create a project for each one of those languages, set up a Node.js environment, probably create a server, which is pretty cool. Uh, both in Node.js server, Python server, hopefully C Sharp and Java servers. Those would be nice. You may or I mean depends on what the focus is because it doesn't sound like there's a database based access. You're not doing web development, you're not doing app development, you're not doing game development. So there's no focus, which means that you're just kind of going into and learning a bunch of different ways programming works, which is great because that's you forcing in, or I guess speed running the 15% on multiple languages, um, which can help with basically being generally diverse in usage. Then from that point, what are you going to do with it is the question, right? From that point, you have to expand into, well, now I want to use most of my JavaScript, my Node.js to create an app. Java would help you with the Android side. So you create an Android Java container. You point basically to the URL of your Node.js app, wherever it's online. It'll download that app directly onto the phone, and then you can create Android apps directly as Node.js React type web apps. Um, because React is kind of like the middleman between different mobile platforms. It helps developers create not only an Android app, but also be compatible with um, iOS and Apple phones. So you can do a lot with the combination of those languages for sure. It just doesn't seem like there's a crazy focus on what the applicable outcome, right? Every time you want to learn something, you want to be able to apply this to an online sense. And in this case, it kind of seems like you're kind of going through a bunch of languages, which is cool. They are individually capable of relating to each other. Again, Android with Java, create a Java container app, load up the Node.js website locally on that container app. And then it depends on your Node.js programming on how good that app is. So I would say maybe focus in, based on you then, based on this, focus on the Node.js because that's going to be the most mechanical piece you need. That's going to be the most advanced part that you're going to be able to use to create, um, if you're going into app development specifically, right? If you're going into app development, focus on Node.js because the container app is just a couple of lines of code. I've made one too. It's just a couple of JavaScript code, Java-based code with an XML overlay, full screen, and then download the link, save the files, and now it's a Node.js client-side application. But the Node.js is where you make that functionality happen. So what is your app gonna do? Knowing the way that you structure different pages, popping and pushing off a stack. Um, what was that called in Node.js? I used to teach someone back 2 or 3 years ago how to create a Node.js app. There's this form of navigational breadcrumbs that it uses where information from one screen is passed to the next screen in a kind of typical, mobile way where you click on something and then the page changes to another screen, but you're still logged into that screen. You're in a different part of your profile, and then you can swipe left and it takes you back a page. So that kind of navigational process, which is a lot different on a stack because you're kind of like you're in home page and then you're in your profile page, right? And then maybe you go to the uh uh your settings and then you go into change password and you change your password and you're going back and back and back. So there's like different layers of the navigation that basically happens there. Python, universal tool. Python is great for any administrators on a PC, on a computer. I love Python and it's becoming more and more used now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like the React router, exactly. I think there was another one also. What's the not the React.js was another one too. Angular. Angular was the one with, hold on. Yeah, React had the routers. Angular had what was it? Navigation events. Yeah, it's basically a route. Yeah, 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 the router event. Also in Angular. I think I taught someone Angular rather. Yeah, it was Angular, not React, but they kind of share similar factors here. But TypeScript is just basically JavaScript with some extra steps, but it does really good job on the case for organizing and expanding the abilities of code. It's a good set of stuff. It really depends on what you want to do with them. I always consider like find before you start your boot camp, find a project you want to make, right? And as you're doing your boot camp, complete the parts that you can based on those details. If you lay out your project like I want to make a mobile app, well, you need a backend, right? But first, you need to make a basic template. So create a basic template in Node.js, right? Under understand. Okay, there we go. Understand how that basic template works, and then as you gain more skills in your boot camp, apply those skills to your template. That'll be your own personal portfolio project. Every programmer needs a portfolio. This is why GitHub exists, right? Not just to share code back and forth, but also to use that as a sort of developer portfolio. So as you grow your GitHub, your portfolio grows. Depends if you want to share your code to the world or not. I'm kind of 50-50 on that myself. But in general, that's kind of what you want to do is you want to create your own project on top of what you're learning and then save everything you're learning. You're going to have projects in class that you have to do, put them in a little folder, keep them there, use them, go back to them whenever you need them. Oh yeah, I made this router, React router. Let me go check out how it looked like before, and then maybe check out what happens. Because in the end, Everything updates, everything changes, no matter what we learned in the past. One of my IT, information technology teachers said, no matter how much, especially being in this subject, in this world of IT and technology and programming and whatever, no matter how much you learn right now, if you ever stop, you're gonna fall behind. Because not only does the language itself, like React, change over time, improvements are made, security holes are patched, and ways we use languages change over time. But new features exist, things get replaced, right? Like maybe something happens and the React router doesn't work as effectively as the new React router 2 or whatever next version that pops up. So your goal is to really expand on the details there. Um, I don't think I did too much network talk, but I do like these conversations. I do like these conversations. So I'm gonna rechange the name here. It's gonna be more of a Q&A session because I have it as like, but we didn't even get to that. But you know what? I'm beginning programming. I have to adjust a little bit. I have to readjust or redo the session based on networking next. But hey, I'm always happy to chat once to go through as far as information. Um, yeah, yeah. Anyway, that's it. So where did I leave off? Did I take something down? No. Steam, why are you open? So one of the great things about Linux lately is that, well, we can use Steam finally. We can play games on Linux and we don't need Windows for anything. That's super nice. All right, so let's say, GIMP. There we go. This is where we left off in the beginning. So speaking of React router, not the same as a 192.168.1.1 router, but back to how networking works on a general sense. It is useful to understand because whenever you're creating, is a developer too, if you're creating applications that speak to each other, you're either going to do it one of three ways: a database, a JSON. No problem, bro. Thanks for dropping in. Uh, and make sure to, turn on notifications for next time if you have any more questions. But even this kind of stuff for networking is useful for any developer because the third way we can communicate with different devices is through actual networking, is to have a port listening on a local device, like a server, and then your application contacts that port and exchanges information back and forth based on whatever your application does, right? Maybe you have a MySQL database set up, it's running locally, and you're contacting that database to take some information down, like users, um, passwords, all kinds of stuff like that. You would have that obviously isolated from a world environment because if you're in development mode, you're really just kind of focusing on your home space. Your router would essentially be this location. This would be completely isolated from the world outside, and your dev space would be within the bounds of this location. You never want to basically open up your development space outside of your home local area because then anyone from the internet can access it. So being behind a router is both great as a front door, but it gives us a local set of rules, local IP addresses. So if you go to someone else's home, you're going to have a similar factor. You're going to have a similar factor of, hey, they have a 192.168 also. So why can't my computer from my home contact them in their home, even though they have a 192? It's because, again, we're in two different routers in two separate locations. So when we're dealing with IP addresses, again, we're dealing with numerical values that represent locations. Now, for the case of some standard IP values, 192.168.1.1 is normally, again, the router. Then we have 192.168.1.255. This is called the broadcasting. If you want to send data to everyone on a network, which means anyone between 1 and 255. So broadcasting between 2 and 254. So this could be a regular computer, 2, 192.168.0.2. And then there could be computers all the way down the line to 254. So you could have a computer at 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way to 254, or you can have them scattered. There's no particular set of rules when we're doing these networking adjustments. But whenever we use this value, the 255, we are essentially sending packets to every single device. Now, there's another value we use for the local computer. Whoever or whatever device you're using currently to communicate with the network, that's your local computer, the one you're standing in front of. So if I go over here and do a ping on 192.127.0.0.1, look at the milliseconds on this sucker. 0.021. It takes absolutely no time to ping. That's because we're talking to ourselves. It's like us thinking in our own heads. Us thinking in our head is much faster than us trying to make the words and explain what we're trying to say out loud. In fact, we can think much faster than we can sometimes speak. But if I was to communicate with another device on my network, let's call it like, let's just go to like a DNS server. That takes about 15 milliseconds to essentially leave the network. So if I have a computer right here, right here, right here. So that's my computer. It leaves, goes to the World Wide Web. 111 is a special IP address on the World Wide Web, which is called a DNS, normally by Cloudflare. This is a case for basically, let me just make this a 32 instead of 62. It's a universal way for us to really go to a first point of contact. And then from there, we can ask, hey, what's the list of internet IPs? Where's google.com? What number is google.com? What number is YouTube? What number is Yahoo? What number is DuckDuckGo? All of those essentially come from a map. This is like if you're Zelda, playing Zelda, you don't know where you're going until you get a map. This is the map guy. This is the map shop. We go to the map shop first, grab a map of the net, because it changes all the time too. IP addresses will change. And then the ping will come back, tell us how long it took. So the red is the one direction, and then we come back. Blue. Bad choice. Yellow. And we come back with the, hey, it took us, it's a horrible arrow. It took us 17 milliseconds, 7, 9, 8, etc. This much time that it took us to get from point 1 to point 2, right? So what we've done here is just communicate with, hey, 111, see if they exist, if they're there, if we have connection. This ping is the normal way we figure out if there's a direct connection from point A to point B. Always great to check if you're trying to figure out why your network is not working. Just ping 1111. This will give you the idea of, hey, yeah, like an address book, exactly. So it's a map, it's an address book, and that's what the DNS would be in case scenario. I think 444 is for Google, 222 is also Google, but they have servers online that essentially use this in a sense like that. But you need to know where you're connecting to. There's also a case for the router itself storing an address book as well. So the 192.168.1.1 router kind of like gets a copy of that address book. So then we don't have to constantly go online for that address book to constantly update, right? If there's a change, sure, then the copy is made. But if there's no change, we just take what's available to us and we move on forward. So the router also acts as a middleman address book. And then we also have a local address book. Not a lot of people use it, and this is how people get hacked actually. because we don't use something called the hosts, and it's probably best that we don't. There's a file in our computer called hosts. It's, if you're in Windows, it's right there somewhere in the System32 file. And that's kind of like the local address that you have on your person. So this is like normally empty. We don't have anything in here unless we decide to block specific places. In fact, some security software will put in the hosts file everything they know about malicious websites online. And what they would do is basically replace it with your address. So let's say the host file says you have 127, the way that we would format the host file, 127.0.0.1, and then at the end we put the website that would represent that, attacker.com. What the host file does here, it says, hey, if you type in attacker.com in the URL of any browser, it's just going to take you back to your own local host. This is the way we completely disconnect and say, priority wise, it's not going to go online to try and find where attacker.com is. It's not going to look for that address, right? It's just going to go to hosts first because it's the local version of that address. So if host has a value for attacker.com, it's just going to say, okay, I'm going to use that value. I'm not going to go online. There's a priority over the closest address book to follow those rules. If it's not there, it goes to your router. If it's not in the router, it goes to the online map DNS record. And then it picks up, well, where's the attacker? And then that's the actual attacker. But here, the way you prevent websites, especially, this is a it's a 2-3 way street here. If you don't want your cracked Photoshop to register online, what did we learn? Whenever your Photoshop tries to go online and register with Adobe, just put a little host for 127.0.0.1 so it never reaches Adobe. It works in so many different ways. It's the creative thought that really replaces the functionality of this, right? So a computer will tell you what a host file is, and AI will give you the details on how to set up a host file. But it takes that little creative thought to say, hey, I can stop websites from hacking me because my host file can take them back to, if my computer tries to exit to those websites, it'll just bring them back to my local and it would never connect. Or maliciously, if I have a cracked version of Photoshop and I don't want it to communicate with Adobe, I'll just redirect Adobe to go to my local device. Now, that doesn't mean it'll work. That doesn't mean that Adobe is not going to say, oh, wait, you're good, because it might be expecting something. It might expect a specific connection, a type of token from Adobe. So then maybe you have to figure out, well, what does Adobe do on their side to activate the version of my Photoshop? And then you have to replicate it with a local server, and that's just a lot more than what you would expect. But the case for anything cracked is normally it's already working fine. You just don't want it to update because once it updates, then it pings the mothership that something is actually not registered. So that's a way that you can essentially go around a lot of registration issues with online-based telemetry using the localhost file versus the router, which is second priority, and then finally the map online, the DNS that you would find basically keeps track of everything that exists on the net. And DNS records, when you make a website, when you say, I want superscholar.xyz, I want that name, you pay somebody to put you on a DNS map. That's it. That's all it is. You pay a company, they register your name, they put you on a DNS record, and now you have a website that takes you to a specific server. Now, the computer doesn't care for the name. It's only human beings that read words, right? So really the computer just cares about what that name is linked to what number. What's the address? So if I ping something like www.google.com, it doesn't care for the Google part. Notice it's using the address for Google. It doesn't care about google.com. It just says, hey, where is google.com? Oh, it's 142.251.14036. Great. I'm going to use that. And then boom. And it just uses that as a reference point, right? And then you have a 59 milliseconds to that location. So that's kind of the concept of URLs. It's really the computers communicating based on your DNS map, your connection between words and numbers, because computers don't care for words. They are mathematical machines. So they're really looking for this. Where is the website and what am I going to? This is a DNS record on the local computer. What website? Where am I going? And that's just a little way to go around automatic updates and telling them to basically F off and never connect online. um, so those are the kind of factors we're thinking about in our network, right? Now, I did put 192.168 here, but the case scenario is those don't matter. In fact, none of these matter, just the last digits matter here. Anything in the one location is normally a router, normally a switch, something that's directing traffic to the subnet location. It could be 10.10.10, it could be 192. It doesn't matter which one. On a 255 broadcast, you're basically just sending a ping or a set of data to everything on that network. You're essentially not going to get a response because 255 is going to get that response. So you can't really figure out, oh, who responded, who said hi back, because it's always a two-way communication. You send some information and you wait for it to come back. It's always a two-way communication for acknowledgement. But if you send through 255, 255 pings everything, and then everything pings 255 back. But if we are, for instance, not 255, we are currently 109, well, we're never going to get a response because the response is going to 255. And we can't be placed in 255's place because in the end, that's a whole different IP address. We don't have access to that. It's kind of the way the routers are structured. The router is the one managing the network, by the way. So routers have a one always default location and 255 of broadcast to all the values in between. Now, I guess local computer to 127 can sometimes also be 0.0.0.0, or you can use the keyword localhost. That can also work as an abbreviated factor for this value. So there's a different set of ways you can access yourself, quote unquote, with those. So we can basically, I guess we couldn't do that directly here. We couldn't replace this with localhost because that would be the association. But in your actual like your host's file, you might have this. This would be the direct meaning of localhost. Take me back to myself, right? So a computer may not understand the word localhost, but it says, oh, localhost is pointing to myself. Therefore, go to 127.0.0.1. Cool. That's internal. External, right? And that's really all it takes on the internal space. We get to organize our own structure inside. Now, if I wanted to essentially create a ping, let's do that. Let's ping everything on my network. We actually have an AI suggestion here. Couple of ways. We've got to create a bin bash. So if you're in Linux, this is how you do it. You can also do it in Windows with a batch file, but let me make a new window here. Let's create our own first batch or bash shell. Let me open up a folder, code. Gonna call this tools. Open, create new file, ping sweep dot sh shell. I think it was sh. Yeah, pretty sure. Bin bash. So the first thing we do in these cases is we have to let the system know where our bash script location is. So we use a, let me zoom in here. We use a hashtag. Got someone else called it something else. Forget the other name that it used to be called before Twitter. Bin bash. So we essentially create our typical, hey, this is where my bash location is, my runner of this script. Save. We gotta define a starting IP. Yeah, I mean, yeah, but starting IP is just a router, so you just say start. We're using a string to organize these values. So 168.1.1. Hmm, let me read this down. So that's that for IP in sequence start to end. Ah, okay. So there's a kind of okay. Start IP, end IP. So the sequence might actually do a little extra for us. All right, I'll follow the exact directions because there's different ways to do this. You can basically do this, then dot, and then you leave off the last part on purpose because you will increment using integers that convert to strings. So you would do like an attachment. Oh, how would I do that in here? I don't know, too much bash. It's been a while since I did bash. So we would do something like attach one for 1.1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 5, and we basically ping all of these hosts all the way down the line until we get to 254. We don't want to really do 255 because, again, we just saw that 255 was a broadcast. It's not going to be a computer on its own. So we're basically scanning 2 to 254. That's our goal, is to scan 4 machines to see if they respond. The typical way would be to increment the last digit with a +1 for every ping. So we basically go down the line and do it. Now this AI is giving me this format, which looks nice. This is the great thing about AI too. You may know how to program thing in something in one way. Then it shows you can do it in a different way, and it just starts to kind of flow into space and be like, maybe this one's better. Because we're not going to do 255, we're going to do 254. I don't even want to do 1, because obviously it's going to be up if there's a router involved, but hey, we're following it for now. Now, we make a for loop. We use the variable IP in a sequence of the start to the end. Is it subtracting? Interesting. I kind of want to see what it does. So I'm going to do echo IP for the first case scenario because I'm curious. Then I'm going to open up a terminal with tab control tilde. And then I'm going to, I need to do a chmod x on ping sweep. And then I need to do a ping sweep call. Syntax and spare, of course, hold on. And what's the ending? Done. Argument, float point, valid float point argument sequence. Okay, so, hmm. So it almost looks like it's trying to subtract 2 values here. Floating point argument. Well, we're using not floats, we're using strings. See, that might be a case for it's not right. Let me see another case. Because this might be a very low model. It really depends on the model too. That's the problem there. The different models can give us different kind of values. See, the one that a much larger model that I have on my other computer basically does something similar to what I wanted to do. We do it this way. There's no end for this, but it uses nmap. I don't want to use nmap. Start IP point one. Okay. Ah, that's a nice one. I actually like the way this one worked out. So we do network 192.168.1, and then over here we'll use network as a holder for the local network because maybe we want to easily change back and forth between different networks. That would be the case there. Then put 1. And then same thing here. But this time 0.254. And then for IP and sequence start. Oh, interesting. It did the same idea. So maybe it just was a typo for the other one. IP and sequence of start No, it didn't use the strings correctly, potentially. There was no subtraction in the middle. That's probably another case. So from the start to the end, we do, and this is where I want to check out what IP looks like. Again with the end of file. Invalid floating point argument sequence, start, end. Same issue, huh? Okay, well, let's give it the detail using AI to fix AI. Oh, it's going to be a slower version because on this computer, I think I have 2 gigs of RAM. This is why if you want to have a local AI, it might be a little bit dependent, a lot of it dependent on the graphics card. Hmm. Because we're approaching it the same way between the two AIs. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Number of hosts. Okay. Core I and sequence number of hosts. Okay. See, that makes more sense. Why would it? All right. Because you can't really iterate through a sequence of just regular values. So we have a start value, hosts, normally 254 because that's the most we can have in a space. We have our network start normally. We don't need this. And then for IP in hosts and sequence number of hosts. That's the case, right? So we can do here basically the value of 256. Let's check it. Always basically run this. There we go. There we go. So then I want to construct each IP individually, and then I'll do something like network, and then that. So this is just us echoing each value of the increment. Right, close. I didn't put the dot in between. So now we can go through and ping each one of these. Then we have to use a factor here. So we have to not just ping them, but save them to a, okay, so they're saving it. Do I want to do that though? Subnet. So instead of echoing it, we save it to an IP list. Meh. But that could be useful for us to keep stuff organized. So then I can have which values or which networks are up and which ones are down. I guess if I wanted to do more like data upkeep and have the array keep track of which IPs are up and then which one goes off, and I have like a previous to current comparison. But I don't. I just want to figure out a simple sweep. So since I'm doing this, I want to now do ping with only one packet. That's the key here. So only one packet and I think a wait of 1 second. So we basically now connect the command. There we go. Nice. But now in this case, we're ping sweeping. It's not giving us any interesting stuff. Zero received, zero received, zero received. So we basically created a simple little script here to go through and ping everything. So we got a ping in one. We got a 51.9 milliseconds. Makes sense. That's a local router. Pin statistics. Ping two, nothing. Three, nothing, 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 nothing. So we want this to be a bit more automatic, right? In fact, it could be faster. That's the situation here. We're doing it really slow. Greater than dev null. Interesting. Hold on. I didn't think about that. So if we do a ping IP and then greater than, I guess, hello? Yeah. Dev null, the value of nothing. But we want to make this into an if statement. Okay, so if ping is greater than null, meaning there's something that's not zero. And I guess in this case, dev null is just another kind of shortcut for us to use a predefined set of values that are telling us that it's not empty. Then we can echo to ourselves that the network dot the IP is up. So now I gotta scroll all the way down. Nope, stop it. Stop it. Oh, I can't stop the ping of death. Okay, there we go. There we go. I got it. So now let's do this. Unexpected done. All right. We gotta do Fi. If and Fi basically, we only care for the up hosts. If and Fi cancel each other out. So a little monster. It's a different monster when it comes to bash scripting. Okay, there we go. Now it's much quicker. I hope. It's not showing all of the possible cases, which is nice. Ugh. It's doing it really slow still, though, unfortunately. It looks like it might be, I mean, it might just be a ping case scenario. So this should basically go through the whole network, ping the specific values. When it gets to 100, there's a couple of values in 100 that exist. So I think 100 and I have a device at 100 and 100 and something. Bytes of data lost? No? Okay. So I have another device over here. What's the ping on you? Oh, no, don't do that. Wrong computer. IF config. Oh, IP config on a Windows machine. Oh, weird. No, it's a 107. So 107 should be up. 107. Packet loss. Interesting. So let me check network local. Ping 192.168.1.109. Yeah, but that worked fine. Oh, I'm 109. Ugh. 107. You know what? That might just be the security software on my other computer. That's why I can't find it. True, true, very true. So, security software, very nice. In this case, it looks like my Windows security software is actually preventing it from being pinged online on the network, which is very good. Ah, 109 is up, which is the machine we're currently on. 106 is up. Who's 106? What device is 106? It might be my phone. I can do, if you download, by the way, you can download Termux, the terminal on your Android device. It's called Termux, Termux, and I can ping or do an IF config. 101? Okay, ping 192.168.109, point 109. Yeah, see, look, I'm actually getting response. Oh, hello. Ugh, ugh. There we go. I'm getting a response from 109, which is this computer. So interestingly enough. Anyway, that's how it works out. We made a ping sweep. It's pretty slow. It's expected. Depending on the packets being sent, the time being taken, uh, it works enough to basically scan a network and figure out what's on, what's up. But there's more details in the future to go over. I've already spent 2 hours on. I'm burnt out. My normal limit is about 2 hour sessions. And I'm gonna do something else now. Probably play some games. Ooh, there was a game I wanted to stream, so I might enter a stream with a game after this. But for now, we're done. Thanks for joining. Appreciate the time you spent, kitty cat. Kitty cat. Kitty cat. Say bye. I'll say bye bye to the class. No, it's my baby boy. My baby boy. Appreciate all the participation we had today. Very happy to go into many different tangents and can basically communicate. Only two are up. Man, you are not in an isolated network. 109. 107 is not responding. Interesting. What about 10 101? Yeah, 101's responding. So why didn't that pop up? Hmm. Oh, what? Hmm. Maybe I gotta remove this sucker. Maybe no wait time is good. Maybe W was wait time. Hold on. Maybe I improved the code. I don't know why it told me that. Interesting. Anyway, that's how networks work in a nutshell. We got a good kind of perspective on the local. The external networks, they are a lot more complex, a lot more structured, and a lot more out of reach for most individuals from a local. Because again, you are behind a router, which means you're also behind an IP address that connects you to the world. And that IP address is managed by none other than your internet service provider. So really, you can do everything you'd like with networking, hacking, whatever you want to do, in the safety and isolation of your own home. But as soon as you leave home and you decide to do this kind of stuff online, your ISP is not going to be happy. So try not to do any crazy pinging online because you might look, especially lately with censorship and all kinds of crazy stuff happening on the net. Be very careful when you breach the border of home sweet home and the world around you because there's a lot of surveillance. Your actions may seem suspicious for someone outside of their network, and just kind of keep it to your house. This is for educational purposes only to understand how networks work, and we'll expand further on machine-to-machine access through the net using SSH, Metasploit, and other tools in our toolbox for the future. And that's really it. Make sure to like, subscribe if you like this kind of stuff. Networking, programming, C++, Android stuff, computer science, mathematics. Well, once in a while I get little sessions on mathematics as well. So always good. Uh, and like, subscribe, turn the notifications on for when I am on next time around. And I'll see you then. Peace out.